Hello again everyone, and welcome back to the next car review, and I bring you a compact sports car from Germany, and it's a BMW from M Division. This is the BMW 1M series, and it's one of the best BMW M cars ever made to come out almost a decade ago. And this is crazy because this car was very ahead of its time, and it looks so good till this day. And before we do get into this car review, I reviewed the BMW M4 GTS, which was the last BMW video and the first BMW video I upload to my YouTube channel. And I reviewed so many BMWs in the past and other car reviews. Now, to keep in mind that at the time I did not have a PC or a desktop to make some videos for car reviews. So keep a lookout for some more upcoming BMWs and more car reviews by liking and subscribe and turn on the notifications to know when my video is uploaded to keep up to date of car reviews. Before we do, let's jump right into the 1M series. I introduce you one of the best thrilling BMWs ever made. This is the BMW 1M series, and the 1M is a really good M machine. Today, I will interpret everything you need to know about the 1M series and why you may want to buy this BMW over other fast cars. So we're going to dive right in to explore the features, body design, engine specs, fun factor that it has, and the practicality, and also the great performance that the 1M can do. If you like a car with the proper weight that's not too heavy or not too light and has over 300 horsepower, this is the car for you, and the 1M is cheap to purchase. The BMW 1M series is a high-performance model of the E82 coupe range, sold under the BMW's M division. Now, to clear things up, BMW tried to name this car the M1 originally, but the name was already used for the 1970s M1 supercar to avoid confusion, so they switched the name backwards from M1 to 1M. The 1M series coupe, which made the car to identify easier. Before the 1M series was released for the 2011 model, BMW produced a concept of this car called the 1 Series Thai concept and was premiered at the 2007 Tokyo Auto Show, which was thought to be the preview of the M version of the 1 Series. 4 years later, in 2011, the car became in production in the M version of the 1 Series, and the result was the 1M with significant differences. The BMW 1M featured a turbocharged inline 6 engine. The engine was codenamed N54, which has the same engine used in the old BMW Z4, which was called the E89 Z4. The 1M series produced an average 335 brake horsepower to the rear wheels combined with a 6-speed manual transmission. It has 332 pound-feet of torque. The 1M can rev up to 5,900 RPM, and the car weighed about 3,296 pounds. And the car can go from 0 to 60 in just 4.5 seconds, and it can reach to a top speed of 155 miles per hour. Now, that doesn't sound mind-blowingly fast, isn't it? Well, this car was not made for top speed. This car was made to have fun and driving performance and everything. But this car feels fast though. It's not very fast, but it feels fast because the weight ratio is smooth. BMW was originally going to release the 1M as a limited production model of 2,700 units, but due to overwhelming demand from customers, this car became so popular that BMW lifted the cap and produced a total of 6,309 units until production ended in June 2012. The BMW 1M is a limited production sports car from the M division, and BMW unfortunately canceled production a year later after it was launched in June 2012. People went crazy for this BMW because it didn't have most modern gadgets that some drivers declined, but the main reason why is because how the 1M drives. The fun factor of this car is very high. The 1M has gained the reputation of being one of the best compact sports cars you can find on the market. The 1M has always been seen as the perfect interpretation of what M cars should be. It has a short wheelbase, a beautiful handling, and it feels kind of old school. Unlike the M2, which is the next level M successor, the 1M feels more raw, more connected to the road with this car, and is all about the driving experience. The 1M instantly became popular in 2011 because the public of Beamer fans from around the world loved it, and then they purchased it. And the design language of this car was appealing to them, and it has some awesome great handling. Now let's dive right into the interior of the car, because the interior is where it gets even more interesting, but unfortunately the interior is not really that interesting. But we're going to get into the features of it. So the interior is basic, and there is no fancy high-tech electronics like most luxurious cars. Because the reason why is because this car was simply focused for people who want to drive and have fun. There is no electronic parking braking on the side. So when you get inside of the BMW 1M and you look down next to your driver's seat and you see that parking brake, that's not electronic parking brake, it's just a regular parking brake. The cup holder is optional too and is basic as well. The gauge cluster inside behind the steering wheel is basic as well. It doesn't have an ultra LCD screen like up-to-date modern BMW cars or most other cars that do animation when you start up the engine. Just a normal gauge cluster. You also have the infotainment screen above the center climate controls. The buttons for the climate controls and the radio are so easy and simple to use. The center console is not made out of high quality material. Instead, BMW decided to use the center console as plastic to save weight with a 6-speed stick shift above it, next to the cup holder. The 1M has orange stitching on the seats, even on the floor carpets, and across the dashboard from the glove compartment to the center buttons to match the 1M series paint scheme. The steering wheel has BMW color stitching too, which indicates that you are driving a M car from Motorsport division. Now let's dive right into the practicality, because that's the most important part before buying this car, right? Or before just thinking about buying a 1M. Trust me, you won't regret buying this car. But if you want high-tech features and stuff, then buy more modern BMWs. But this car is going to save you a lot of money, especially for a beginner's car, as your first car getting out from high school, or maybe if you're lucky and have enough budget to buy this car, you all set. The 1M has 4 seats. It's a 2-door coupe with no sunroof, and it was only available as a coupe and only available as a manual transmission with 3 different color schemes. The 1M is a small car, but the back seats are big enough to fit 2 average adults or teens, which is pretty good. That's pretty insane for a BMW small compact sports car that can fit 2 average adults or teens in the back. All you gotta do is adjust the front seats forward, and then that's basically enough space back there to fit enough storage too. You can even use the back seats as for more storage, and the car trunk space is surprisingly big. It has 13.3 cubic feet of trunk space, which is enough to contain 3 backpacks or 3 roller bags for vacation, for example. That's how big the trunk is. It's a large trunk space for a small compact car from BMW. You better off hearing and buying a straight 6 engine with a manual transmission than a 4-door hatchback with a 4-banger automatic transmission, right? That's a good investment for this car, and this car is very cheap as well. And everything that you get in this car, besides the basic interior, you don't need all that high-tech interior if you're just looking for a simple car to use, right? I'm with you. Everything we basically just said about this car, it is worth the money with enough trunk space to drive every day with basic tech from the interior. But people didn't care about high-end technology at the time because all it needed is just the basics and the fun factor. It had heated front seats, a CD stereo, automatic climate controls with AC, which is air conditioning, and fold-down rear seats for more storage if you want, and most importantly, a manual stick shift. All you need is a manual stick shift with a straight 6 engine, and then everyone is happy. That's what makes the BMW 1M series a special machine, because it is one of the easiest cars to use, and I bet it's extremely fun when you get behind the wheel. You got to really get behind the wheel and drive it to explain yourself why this car was good. But I'm speculating because I like BMWs, as you can tell. When the 1M came out in 2011, which was 10 years ago now, you can get it for just $40K. But as the years pass, the price increased over $60,000, which is still a pretty good price. It's a really good deal to purchase a used 1M series since it's been out for like a really long time. It is very reliable, simple, easy to maintain, and one of the cheapest cars and best M cars to ever come out in 2011. And if you are really careful what BMW you want to choose without any problems or issues with them, this is one of the good BMWs. Now, addition to fact about the M1, the M1 was the original M car, and then the M2 became the successor, and it replaced the M1 in 2015 with more power, and it had more top speed, and it was more technical, and the 0 to 60 time was quicker than the M1. The BMW M2 was offered both a dual clutch transmission and a manual transmission. Hence why some Beamer fans like the M1, because it only came with the manual transmission, and how great the car actually was when it was driving on the road. The M2, in my opinion, is the best current M car in comparison to the M1, but the M1 was very legendary, and it was one of the best M cars ever, and some people claim that it is the best M car. And this car had a lot of inspiration from the original BMW M3 because they both are related to each other, and because they're both were all about driving performance. Even the original M3 was about the driving performance. People will fight for which BMW M1 and M2 they want. Now, I will tell you guys, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the M1 or do you prefer the M2? Now, personally, I do prefer the M2 because I think it's more interesting, and most likely, I like the pops and the crackles when you rev the engine, just like the M4 GTS, and it has a different inline 6. M2 is basically different from the M1. Everything is different about the M2 than the M1, but the M1 is more legendary and it's more underrated, and sometimes people don't talk about it. Some people do talk about the M1, but you rarely see people talk about it, which makes it even more special, because at the time it was the popular BMW, and then the M2 came out, and then so many other BMWs became fast and became more technical and became more luxurious, and this car didn't have any of that stuff. It was just basic and fun with a 6-shift transmission. And I think the M1 or the 1M deserves it. Alright, that was the car review of the BMW M1 or the 1M series. I keep calling it M1 by mistake. Sorry for Beamer fans. That was the car review of the 1M series, and I totally enjoy it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to share videos to your friends and to car people who are interested into cars. Make sure to turn on notifications for future videos, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh wait, before we do end this video, I forgot to give you the car sound. Okay, so let's get inside of the BMW M1. Forgive me, I keep calling it the M1, the 1M series, and let's just put the keys in the ignition and start the engine. This car sounds good. Take a listen.